What's up, Facebook? I am live on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok all at one time. Be sure you're following the correct pages right out the gate. There are a lot of fraudulent pages. I've been doing this now for little over 3 years, and there are thousands of fraudulent pages, fraudulent people, and scammers who never ever promote my books. So that's the first thing straight out the gate. #1 bestsellers right here. So Linktree, LINKTR period. That's where the period goes. /1776 Nation. You'll find all of my official accounts. If you're following me on TikTok or if you're following me on Instagram, you need to go check out my other pages where I can provide actual text material. All right, Instagram and TikTok is not where you need to be to find your quote-unquote news, all right, or information. Because unfortunately, videos just don't do it justice. All right, you can only talk so long, and then you lose people's attention. Attention spans in America are why the United States looks the way it does. Short attention span. You want a 5-star filet mignon from a freaking microwave that was built in like 1960. All right, ain't gonna happen. All right, it's not gonna be that way. All right, it takes time, and you got to study. And so many Americans, you look atrocious still. I love you, but some of you just look atrocious. All right. The comment boxes and my inboxes show that you're still guilty of opening your mouth like the birds in a nest, and you'll just listen to anybody as long as it's short, concise, and then something you didn't have to go read and study yourself. That is the old America. That is the reason why you have a man leading the face, the imagery, all right, of this right here. 45-47. It's there for a reason. That is a visual validation that this is a strategic plan, strategic operation, special operation. Like a broken record. Daily, weekly, podcast I'm on. This is all you need right here. Therefore, in order to comprehend that, you need to lose all the drama, all the propaganda, and all the influencers who are using drama and propaganda, not laws and orders, to mislead you, but also rattle your emotions and your feelings. Now, some people don't like my delivery, and that's okay. I am who I am. I am just being me. I have a deep voice for a reason, but I speak the way I do because, 1, I was raised this way. 2, my dad and grandfathers had deep voices. And then 3, it's also to rattle you in the correct way, to shake you the correct way. If you want something different, then you don't keep repeating the same things that you've always done. You know what they call that? They call that insanity. That's exactly what that is. And too many people are guilty of being on social media and you just want to have a name and a voice. You just want to have a comment. And I understand that from another standpoint that, look, you're a person, you're a civilian. All right? But you got to be fed the correct things. And if you're not fed the correct things, then some of your voices and some of your comments are going to look bad, sad, atrocious, shameful, disgraceful, discolorful, whatever terminology you want to put on it. I don't want you to look that way. President Trump don't want you to look that way. The military don't want you to look that way. Like the good guys and gals don't want you to look that way. So this is a true battle of spiritual warfare and then information warfare. Now, I'm not a preacher. I'm not a preacher, pastor, evangelist, anything. Don't claim to be. But I do know a little bit of the Bible. What's crazy about it is atheists know the Bible better than some Christians do. People who are evil know the Bible better than Christians do. But the Bible does say this specifically. It says the devil is out to steal, kill, destroy. Why would he come after you if he don't have anything to steal? See, the devil comes after people when they have something to steal. And when they have something to steal, then he wants to kill and destroy it. Most influencers out there, they don't have anything to steal. Just moving lips. Same old drama, same old propaganda from days of old. This strategic plan and operation was put into place to bust that up, to put that in days of old, to expose the swamp. Get rid of the swamp. And too many people are still following swamp rats that replicate the swamp and or are the swamp, and they're trying to grow back, and they're trying to keep that foothold just enough, and they're bringing you down with it. So guys like me don't care about my reputation. I don't care about all the people out there who do slander, defame, and all those things. Right? I'm like Tom Hoban now. I don't give a dang what you think about me. We are here for a plan and a purpose. And it's time that everybody, again, you realize where we are in this battle and make sure that you're on the correct side of history. Now, you can still be a good person and being misled and following someone who's misleading you as that, like they're your pillar that you go to, and they be bad or just not official, and you still make it okay. But you could have put them behind and unfollow them and come over to somewhere that's going to lead you to the correct information that the commander-in-chief is working with. And the problem we have is so many people, you think you have a respect for the military, and maybe you do from a distance, but also from another standpoint, but you don't have a respect for the military from the aspect of military operates with laws and orders. Our own laws and orders, separate from federal and separate from state. We have our own laws, orders, regulations, strategies, tactics. And also in our special operations of the United States Army, special operations, it tells you specifically in unconventional warfare, when you know the good guys are in control, but some of you you don't know the good guys are in control because you don't know anything good. All you know is drama and propaganda. But when the good guys are in control, and gals, are in control of this nation, using the correct laws and orders for the restoration, but also the maintaining and sustaining of our origin, history, foundation, it specifically says in our Special Operations Command, unconventional warfare, that during a revolution, that whether the United States government supports the policies, that the military can act. That's why so many people, you look shaken, you get shook over the smallest, tiniest little things. And even things like way back when FJB became a slogan, or Let's Go Brandon, even that showed you still didn't know what was going on because you didn't even have to chant that, because this man is the face, image, brand, likeness, everything, the face of a military operation. You didn't even have to chant any of that stuff. Chanting that still showed you were captured and controlled by emotions and feelings. So you didn't even have to do any of that stuff. And the same thing that's going on right now, people are getting hung up on like a governor or a mayor. You're getting hung up on things that you wouldn't even have to get hung up on if you knew what this stood for. And if you knew the military laws and the military orders right now, currently in vote. All your southern border, Texas, New Mexico, California, all your southern border, Arizona, didn't forget y'all, all your southern border, Proclamation 9844 from February 2019. So how was President Trump a threat, a dictator, and all these? If every single one of those Tattletale orders made it from 2018, 2019, 2020, to present day? So if I didn't know what I know, which is unconventional warfare, irregular warfare, government in exile, puppet government, tactics of using civil affairs and military separate, that made it look like to the public there were two presidents, if you know what I know. But even if you didn't know, then you really don't know, so then you didn't even know. You thought Joe was actual president, and he wasn't. This has all been done in the 1940s. It's not old fogey, even if it sounds like it. It's not far-fetched, even if it sounds like it. It's already been done before. That's how we know it works, and we can use it again. It's a strategy and a tactic. And why Republicans, conservatives, patriots, but especially people claiming to be MAGA, would have a problem with using strategies and tactics like that, then you have a problem. You might not actually be Republican. You might not be conservative. You might not be patriot, and you definitely ain't MAGA. So you can't claim that you support the military and respect the military if you don't respect all of the military. Military don't get up every morning and go, oh, shoo, the weather's changing. Golly, this sinus headache is killing me. Oh, what do y'all want to do? What do y'all want to do today, boys? You want to fight or not? I don't know. I think we ought to just chill around here at the battery and just sit here. What do you think? What do you want to do? I mean, it baffles me to wonder how Americans think that the man that you think is so unique and different, which he is, but to think that he's not operating on laws and orders. He just says a few colorful words in a different tone and context than any other person before. It's not doing anything different with the laws and orders. But then you'll say, I believe he is, but then you get mad or upset or bitter or frustrated, all these other things with someone like me who could break it down because you don't want to study it and read it and comprehend it. The very thing that he's using. So like all these things that's taking place, it's all pre-planned. It's choreographed. It's already pre-planned. That is what a strategic plan is. That is what strategic operations are. And there's daily visuals, daily, that prove this. So what typically happens is Americans will go, well, my cousin was a colonel and he ain't never heard of any of this. Well, your cousin may be a dirtbag. Sorry, not sorry. Your auntie, your uncle, your daddy, your grandpa, whoever, if they don't know the current laws and orders invoked and what they mean, it don't matter if they were a general. They could be influenced. They could be compromised. They could be bought by one of those entities over here that we know other generals, rare, colonels, rare, but we know they have in the past. We have examples of that in the past. Good versus evil. We're not in a Republican versus Democrat. Those titles have to be used sometimes to show who is and who ain't. But overall, this is a good versus evil. This is a spiritual warfare and an information warfare. It's a clean out of the swamp. Drain that swamp. So many people, you chanted, follow the money. President Trump said all these quotes and you chanted it behind him. Follow the money. The best is yet to come. Then he said, drain that swamp. Drain that swamp. Boy, y'all chanted that thing and chanted that thing. It's happening right in front of you. I'm the guy showing how it was drained and how it has been drained. And how everything you're watching is choreographed, strategic, pre-planned, day by day. It's already happened. But you have people out there still going, oh, the deep state's doing this, and the deep state's... No, they are not. On paper, they are strategically planned, choreographed. That shows you're still captured, controlled by the emotions and the feelings, thinking everything's real time. And if you would divorce your emotions, divorce your feelings, and comprehend, seek to comprehend that this is a strategic plan, strategic operation, special operation, then you would see that the whole thing's been pre-planned, and what you're watching day to day is the rollout process, And it is designed for the target audience who has yet to hear someone like me, who has yet to study the laws and the orders currently invoked by this operation. That simple. Only people make it complicated. And I can't uncomplicate it for you. I can teach it to you without complications, but I can't make you listen. I can't make you learn. I can't make you comprehend anything. And that's why people look atrocious right now. But it's still going to get done for you. It's still going to be cleaned out, still going to be a brand new slate, just as the Declaration of Independence prescribes and describes. Two different things the Declaration does. It's a prescription for future use. It's also a description of how to use. See, Americans also have forgotten terminology. You've gotten real slang. I love slang. I'm a slang dude, especially in country music. I slang stuff up. It rhymes better. But when it comes to laws and orders and life and death, you can't cut corners. There's no loopholes. You have to know terminology, definitions, glossaries, indexes. Then you have to see the sequence, how something is written, like the Bible verse, steal, kill, destroy. The devil wouldn't want it if there wasn't anything to steal, right? He has to have something he wants to steal, something he's jealous of before he kill and destroy it. If there's nothing to steal, then it's nothing that's of what? Detriment. So it's the same thing. Terminology matters. And so many Americans, one, don't even know the laws and orders. I always said this, and I got away from it, and I'm going to get back to it. If you walked up on the street to the average American and said, name the three branches of government, 68 to 75%, there's different polls out there, but it doesn't matter. 68 alone, if you went with the lower number, 68% of Americans, if you walked up to them on the street and said, name the three branches of government, cannot simply name the three branches of government. They cannot say the words, the terms, legislative, executive, judicial. Oh, but boy, do they have an opinion on the president. Oh, boy, do they have an opinion on what's going on, but cannot name the three branches. So if you can't name them, you definitely cannot tell me who writes and passes the laws. You can't tell me who enforces the laws, and you cannot tell me who interprets the laws. So if you can't even do the simplicities, then guess what you also cannot do? Know how a law reads, know how it's enforced, know when it's constitutional, know when it's against the law. But see, the thing is these people out there chanting unconstitutional, unconstitutional. They can't even name anything from the Constitution. That's what's bad about it. And what's also even more atrocious about it is the fact that every law and order that we have on paper right now that President Donald John Trump is using was in the law books long before he became president. So if they were unconstitutional or against the law, which the Constitution is the highest law in the land, and then the laws that have been passed under that, if those laws were against the law and unconstitutional, then why did all the previous Congresses keep them in the law books to be used by the present day president. So see, anyone who's yelling, chanting against the law, unconstitutional, they should be mad at the previous Congresses. Not the current president for using it. But it's not against the law. Nothing that President Donald John Trump, wartime President Donald John Trump, is using is against the law. We have a bunch of spoiled, toddler-acting children that call themselves adults that identify as libtards. They're a bunch of tainted atoms, all right? Their brains don't even operate and function correctly because they've never even had an opportunity to operate and function correctly because they've been brainwashed and controlled on their side, all right? They're upset because they thought their little comfort of their DEI and all their inclusivity, they thought all that was secured. They thought it was, right? Until the good guys got in control and said, no longer are we going to print money and then raise taxes and create more taxes and then tax the American people for your selfish and sickening and disgusting ways of lives. If you want to chop your ham candle off, then you can go find you a doctor in a barn in the back of the woods somewhere and chop your ham candle off. But guess who ain't paying for it? We ain't. Ain't going to happen. You're also not going to have your little drag queen shows and go down to the schoolhouses and try to cram crap down the children's throats. You're not going to do that. Enough's enough. We had enough. It's done. It's over. So see, all this little world that these libtards thought was built for them, had the rug's been snatched up under them, they're being put back in their rightful place, and they're mad and pissy, but they're not that big. They bark loud, but they're not that big. But let me tell you what they do good. They're cohesive, and they all hate the same thing equally. And President Trump says this all the time. Why is it Republicans who cannot get on the same page with each other? Boy, Republicans, conservatives, you're everywhere. Simply because you don't even know the laws and the orders of this land. You don't know the laws and the orders that the president's working with. If you had those attached to your personal beliefs, which a lot of you are Christians, or at least spiritual, if you had the laws and the orders of the man you claim to love and support, if you had that as your foundation, you'd be lethal in a good way. And then if you would just apply some simple humanitarian principles of the great Hank Williams, well, if you mind your own business, then you won't be minding mine. If you keep your beliefs at your household instead of you also trying to influence others in the wrong kind of way, if everybody would stay in their lane and do what you're supposed to do, and pull you some Elvis Presley in there occasionally too. Clean up your own backyard, right? If you just apply Elvis and Hank, the two legends from Mississippi and Alabama, if you would apply their simple humanitarian lyrics to mind your own business and clean up your own backyard, if you do that on a daily, have laws and orders as your solid foundation, this place would get back the way it looked in the 40s and the 50s without the swamp in the background that was festering and festering and festering and building what they were building behind the scenes. See, we have the great James Stewart, actor, who was an actor, but also he ended his career as a brigadier general in the military. Pilot. My dad got to serve around the great James Stewart in the United States Air Force. How cool is that? But you had James Stewart in a movie called Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where he was showing in a movie how corrupt Congress was then and how they put all these bills in a package together. So what you're seeing right now with the quote-unquote shutdown, what you're seeing, even though we're in a continuity government, but for the people that don't know that yet, what you're seeing and think you're seeing, that's what Congress did all these years. They go, hey, you get you a couple bills, and we're going to get us a couple bills, and we're going to pass them together. Well, you could have 5 good bills, 1 bad one, and that 1 bad one hang up the 5 good ones. See, they consolidated their process, and they put all these things in a package. And then that's why you've seen in the past a certain congressman or woman get blamed for the 1 vote. No. Ain't how it works. Not how it works. Then in 1939, in the movie Stagecoach by the great John Wayne, real name Marion Morrison, all right, but known as John Wayne's stage name, 1939 in the movie Stagecoach, the riding in the stagecoach, he's on the floorboard. There's a man in a suit sitting in the stagecoach, and he says, what this country needs is a president who's a businessman. That was 1939. How long did it take to have a businessman as president? Do your math, people. It ain't difficult. It ain't difficult. So, 80 plus years. So many Americans don't know how this nation functions and operates. And it starts at the small local levels, because when you're voting for your local representatives and your state representatives, that's where you got to apply your voice. That's where we, the people, are effective. And where we're effective down there, knowing those laws and orders, and also the functions of the 3 branches of government with those state representatives, then they also have that influence with your United States Congress, your senators and your representatives. So many people just don't know the functions of government and how it gets to the federal level. You're arguing and fussing over federal and don't even know the state portion and the local portion. That's where you're messing up. If you're still mad and captured and controlled, that's where you're messing up. And yelling at the federal level when you don't know anything is kind of like sitting and watching a football game from TV, or even in the stands. It really don't matter. But you're yelling, your voice is being drowned out by all the other yelling voices in the audience. But especially if you're yelling at a TV where no one can hear you but your friends and your family. And a lot of people look like those people who take a remote control or something and throw it at the TV. You're getting that mad over something you cannot control at that level. Where you control it is when you get into the functions and also know, okay, where's the coach going to be speaking this week? Oh, maybe there's a place I can go speak to the coach. Now, football and those are even worse than politics. So it's really not even a great example. But it's the closest thing that you can come to see kind of what you're doing when you're yelling at the president when you don't even know the laws and orders. Because the laws and the orders currently invoked right now are good laws and orders. Everything the military is doing is all constitutional, it's all lawful, and it's all been in the books for years. So many people are just looking atrocious for no reason at all. Because it's all strategically planned, choreographed, pre-planned, so you don't have to look like that. You don't even have to look like that. So that's what guys like me are doing and trying to say, hey, I know it sucks sometimes to have to show don't follow this person, don't follow this person. They're drama. They're part of the swamp drain out. They're part of this. They think they're equal to President Trump. They think they're better than President Trump. They think they have influence on President Trump. Get out of here. Get the you-know-what out of here. If they had influence on President Trump, they would already have been in his inside circle. Dan Scavino is a great example. Devin Nunes is a great example. We can sit here and name people that are influential people but are on the inside of President Trump's team. There's so many of them. Then there's others that you have got to learn who are pawns. right? They have big platforms, so yeah, there are people who watch them, so they use them as a pawn as we flip the narrative all along the way in this 45-47 operation. So what you should do as an American is first seek out this. That's the first thing. This should be your foundation right here. This is your foundation. Therefore, you got to know the laws and orders of this dash. Now, we're already through the dash visually. We're in the 47 portion, but that dash is very important. 45, 46, and 47. And you heard President Trump say this. He's validated it multiple times. And if I can brag a little bit, right? These books that I wrote that are #1 bestsellers, The Midnight Rider, Rise Again, Part 1 and 2, these stem from my documents that people have been reading called the documents.info, all right, that I published January 2021. Now, how did I know that we were in a military occupation in January 2021? Continuity of government, etc. Those are what stemmed into these. Part 1 here, only 216, 17 pages, somewhere in there. December 2023 publication. I signed my publicity contract sitting at Trump International in President Trump's reserved table at his reserved chair. From all accounts, by all members, I'm the first person he's allowed to sit in his chair at his reserved table and sign my publicity contract. That was February 2023. Part 2 here is thicker. It's 596 pages, but it's a deeper dive into special operations. How to think strategically, how to think in special operations, how to divorce your emotions, how to divorce your feelings, and go straight to how the military operation functions, but special operations. This I put out in January this year, all right, because they're a sequence. And I'm working on part 3. That'll be your 47 portion, all military portion, all right. These are all military based, and how they pair with federal, but they're military first, and then how they pair with federal, that. So how did I know? And how are they #1 bestsellers? And how are they flying off Amazon like hotcakes? They're hot, as President Trump calls them. They're hot. All right? See, President Trump validated me in those books. And it ain't about me, but all of us veterans that are on podcasts that knows what's going on strategically through special operations. President Trump put this on his ball cap April the 2nd, 2023. So do your math. I already had in publication for friends and family at that time period, January 2021, for anyone who wanted to be added to those Google Drives. Friends and family. Long before this visual, I already had that dash in documents. Then, he puts this on when? April 2nd, 2023? When did I sign publicity contract to write this book? February 2023? February, March, April? Come on, people. It ain't that difficult. And President Trump loves veterans who keep their oath and loyal to the oath of the good laws and orders that outline and prescribe everything about our origin, our foundation, and our history. Therefore, you have to know our origin, foundation, and our history. Military was established first in this nation. Military. Our founders started a war, then established the military, the army first, then established 16 days later the first military laws in what they call war articles, June the 30th, 1775. Then came the Navy, which their birthday is tomorrow. All right, 250th birthday tomorrow. Then came the Marine Corps, November. Then came the first flag, December the 3rd, 1775. All of that was before the Declaration of Independence. And then our founders declared independence 7 years before the war ended. They put in this Declaration of Independence 7 years before the war ended. If people could get passionate and just see how awesome that was to write a Declaration of Independence and then go back out, if they didn't write it after they won, they wrote it during the war. What we have are Americans who are just not passionate about America. You don't love the United States of America because of your freedom. You expect, you demand. Huge difference. You expect and demand those who know to do it for you. And that's your problem. You don't want to be a part of it. You want to be a part of it disassociated from the ones who are doing it and fighting for it. Then when it's all over and the smoke clears, you want to say, I was right there with you the whole time. No, you weren't. You're still going to benefit from it, but no, you weren't. President Trump is rewarding so many veterans right now. That's why so many veterans are being put in ambassador slots. Also, though, it's strategic. Not only is he rewarding these ambassadors, veterans, but also an ambassador is the chief of mission. So it's also should have been that way to begin with. So there's two different things going on there. So you got to know those things. All right, so things like the Insurrection Act. Let's get into that really quick. I'm just going to do a few more things, and then I have another podcast I have to hop on today. So if you want to watch me there, you can do that. Follow the link that I post shortly, and you can go watch me on there, and I'll be asked specific questions. But like the Insurrection Act. All right, first off, the Insurrection Act was 1807. This is why people have called for reforms to it, but the ones who have called for reforms to it, they want to limit the president who is actually going to enforce it the correct way, versus have a president who they're controlling and they're using it the wrong way, which is what the swamp did. The swamp used laws and orders the wrong way and tried to limit the president. So that's why you got to know the laws and orders. You got to listen. All right, so 1807, you got to know where we were in 1807. Founders, my lineage traces back to the Revolutionary War. So family members who fought. All right, so our founders fought, declared independence July 4, 1776, 7 years before the war ended. All right, the war ended 1783. 4 years later, we have the Constitution. All right, so do your math here. I'm like, it's not that long. Not that long at all. So from 1789, which is when the enactment actually happened of the Constitution and our first president, and that started everything. All right, so 1807 was 5 years before the British revolted in the War of 1812. They call it the War of 1812 or the Battle of 1812. And we whooped the British's butts again. That's why I love the quote from Major George Armistead of the Battle of Baltimore, which is where the actual Star-Spangled Banner came from. All right, our national anthem came from the Battle of Baltimore, where the major of the fort said he wanted a flag ordered so big that the British had no problem seeing it when they were coming, and they were going to take what they were going to take. That's right. So see, that's why Americans, you just don't have passion. You don't have that kind of passion for America. The United States of America. The Insurrection Act was 5 years before that revolt. So you got to look at the origin of things. Then through the years, we've had other things pass outside the Insurrection Act. We have the Posse Comitatus. All right, we have that. But then where the old saying, the rubber meets the road, you need to go look in publications of the military. That's why I use the Joint Publications 3-57, which is Civil-Military Operations. Page 46. It says generally you don't want active duty or any kind of Title 10 troops in direct military involvement with civilians, law enforcement. No, you don't, generally, unless what? Unless the Constitution or Congress deems so. Congress did that. December the 20th, 2019, Congress put in Section 1550 in Title 50, Chapter 33, which is the War Powers Act. So everything that President Trump's working with and working under, the Congress did it. It's also the Congress who suspends the writ of habeas corpus. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution. Article 1 is the legislative branch. So anytime you hear a governor spout off at the mouth right now, one, we're in a military operation. Again. Laws and orders show that. Laws and orders show that that took place. It is taking place. The whole thing is a visual. I always put little brackets around it. It's hard to do it. But like this, let's see. You put brackets around that, all right? Just like that. Treat it like that. Now, it's not going to end in 47 as far as like the good things that are taking place and the swamp's not going to grow back. But for visuals of the operation itself, look at it like that. Got brackets around it. The whole thing is an operation. Every aspect of it. The very beginning of 45, and when we get to January the 20th, 2029, that's your bracket. All right, President Trump told you with the generals just a few days ago, he said, I'm 45, 46, and 47. I really don't want the results of 46, but I'll take it. That is setting up everything. It's going to move into the disclosure down the road. What we have is a bunch of Americans who don't want to be along for the ride. Yeah, a little faith, because you're still focusing on what you think is real time. It's not real time. Not whatsoever. So until you learn that aspect, you're just going to be wishy-washy, and you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have ups and downs. And you're going to be like me all day, every day, and go, well, they'll get over it. That's not real. If you want my attitude, then you got to know how to study that. The whole thing is a military operation. It's a strategic special operation. Unconventional warfare, irregular warfare. All right? So you got to divorce your emotions. So all of that you're seeing daily with the governors and all this is all pre-planned and strategic, but it's also to show maybe people in a region like Chicago, for example, that, hey, wake yourself up. This is how the law works. This is how the orders operate. This is how the military operates. And some of it is both multiple layers. It could be exposing your leader. It could be there's multiple layers. Multiple. But it's the Congress who's done most of this. So Article 1 is your legislative branch. That's not the president. That's the legislative. That's your Congress. December the 20th, 2019, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. Now, there was a Title 32 order already in place in 2018 with the troops at the polls, all right, but that's a whole different level of the military, Title 32. Federal call-up, but Title 32, so the states, and it was certain states who did it. So it wasn't all 50 states. All right, so that's why you got to know every intricate detail, and that's why a lot of your family members, God love them, but a lot of your family members who are veterans, they put everything in one lump sum. There's multiple sections of Title 10, and there's multiple sections of Title 32. There's the posse comitatus. There's the insurrection. There's a lot of different things that apply to certain sectors and certain levels. And that's why so many people look atrocious, because they want to lump it all in one thing and think that all these apply to one thing. It doesn't work like that. But it's also why our laws and orders have gotten so complicated in another manner. We got outside of the keep it simple stupid and got but that's where Congress in the past and the swamp in the past did what? They did all these things as little ways to nick here and there and here and there to do what? Limit the president for their what? Their selfish control, their selfish gain. They created their own checks and balances. That's why they call it a democracy. It is a democracy because they established a democracy. They, the swamp. They established that. So what President Trump is doing This is your strategic operation portion that I talk about in this, and I can't cover obviously the whole thing. But what they are doing is taking all the deep state tactics that they used on you, the people, to brainwash you, capture you, and control you. We're taking all of those, like the CIA using body doubles, something as simple as that. We're taking all their tactics and using it against them. That's why when you see something on TV, well, I don't want to use detailed examples today, but when you see certain things where you think someone died or you think something happened, like this is all a strategic plan for something that happened back here, right? So some of you don't understand operations because you don't understand operations because you've never been in the military, but you also never studied this. But it could be a plea deal gone wrong. Could have been a bargain gone wrong, right? And then they're going to show this on the TV to the people, and then they're telling these people back here, you know what we're going to do? This is what we're going to do, and you're going to watch it. And when the truth comes out, we're going to put it on your head. And someone back here will cry wolf eventually. But see, that's the background theme, and that's the background scene that so many Americans think is far-fetched and old fogey and a conspiracy and all these other things because you don't seek to comprehend that the whole thing is an operation. You just think it's real time, and you think it's just, oh, a nick for a knack, and oh, you get them, President Trump, and then, oh, why are they saying this about my man? Oh, God. You're living in your little cycle. And you refuse to believe that there's a force, a good force, a white force that's overtaken these evil in a spiritual warfare and an informational warfare, and we're kicking their rear ends. And why you won't want to believe that? Why do you want to curl up in a little ball in a corner of your house and why do you want to do that? That's what you're doing. Virtually, that's what you're doing. You're giving up. You're just so and then people are like, oh, only President Trump can talk like that, dear Jonhson. You can't talk like that. That's why you're captured and controlled. Now, President Donald John Trump is good, and he's a good guy, and this whole thing's an operation. But that very thought process, that you'll go listen to someone over here because they got a blue check and they've had it for 10 years, or they're bigger and they got more followers, that's why you're captured and controlled. Because most of these people they don't have your heart and interest. They don't. They're all for fame, power, money, control, notoriety. That's it. All right. So if you said Trump was right about everything, if you're one of those people who walks around saying Trump was right about everything, if you post that, if you wear that, whatever it is, but you don't want to know what President Trump's working with, that's null and void. All you are is a poster. You're all poster, no brains. All right. So there's that. Now let's get with J6. I'm going to cover two more topics that I've been seeing in my inbox. J6. J6 is another thing. You see President Trump right now on True Social, which a lot of you are not a part of because you didn't even listen to the president when he established his own platform. You didn't even listen to him, and his numbers show that. His followers show that you didn't listen to him. He got way more followers still on X, old school Twitter, than he does on True Social. So again, you didn't even listen to your own commander and join True Social. So there's your first problem. He posts a lot more on there than anywhere. All right. But J6, President Trump right now has been posting a few things like, oh, if that's true about the 274 FBI agents, see, when you read that and you don't know the laws and the orders, it sounds like President Trump's just now being informed of this. And I get messages from people that'll say, oh, do you think President Trump knows about this? whatever you Catholics do, all of it. And a lot of those people are the same ones who say, pose, and wear Trump was right about everything. How can you say that, post that, if you don't believe that? If he's right about everything, then that means he's in charge of everything. He's in control of everything. He knows everything. And he's told you, I know everything. He said this on a recent interview not long ago, where he said, I know everything. He told you in the 2020 debate, we have it all, we've caught them all. You don't listen to the man you claim to support. January the 6th was all part of capturing the deep state. It was also, there's multiple layers of this, but the deep state knew they were captured way back here. All right. When President Trump, when he was walking, when he rolled down that working escalator, when he rolled down that escalator and he announced his candidacy, they already knew it was over. You can also know it was over in 2015. You could know it was over in 2014 when President Trump posted the quote, God, have mercy on my enemies because I won't. You could have already known. And you can still already know. You can still divorce your emotions and your feelings and come over to the good side. The foundation, the plan, the strategic plan, the special operation. Divorce your emotions and feelings and leave all these influencers behind who are nothing but swamp rats, replicate swamp rats, in it for themselves. They're not in it for the team. They're not in it for humanity. They're not in it for the community. They're not in it for that. Before they get exposed. They're going to get exposed. They're getting exposed daily. One got exposed today, and it's only going to lead to more. J6. President Trump signed Executive Order 13848 and declared a national emergency September the 12th, 2018. Inside that executive order, it specifically reads one little sentence in there that is very, very, very key. It says, although no foreign power has altered the outcome or vote tabulation in any United States election. It didn't say in one, it didn't say in two, it didn't say in three, it didn't say in a few, it didn't say in many. It said in any, A-N-Y. Although no foreign power has altered the outcome or vote tabulation. Well, this ties in two different things. This also ties in that we have been invaded from within. President Trump says we have been invaded from within. Our gravest threats are not abroad, they're within. So when you hear the old fat boy from Chicago talking about that President Trump can't invoke the Insurrection Act because there's not a rebellion going on, yes, there has been. It has been within the deep state, the swamp. Yes, it has. And the laws and orders way back here, under Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, put there by the United States Congress, December the 20th, 2019, and the orders that followed in that clause shows that the Congress, bipartisan Congress, is a part of this. It also shows in Executive Order 13961, Executive Order 14146, and Executive Order 14239 that we're still, to this date, October the 12th, 2025, in a partial continuity government. When we're in a partial continuity government, that also means a military operation, military occupation, military government is taking place. And President Trump has validated this over and over and over again using the terms occupied territory, which is occupied country to him. All right, territory in a certain place, I'm about to tell you. He has said white flag of surrender. He has used government in exile. He has used all these tactics. And he's also said capitulation, and the mainstream articles have used these terms: capitulation. Capitulation, white flag of surrender, puppet government, and also occupied country, which is occupied territory. All four of those are law of war manual. They're not federal anything. The law of war manual. White flag of surrender and capitulations are in the same chapter, and then puppet government and occupied territory in the same chapter. Guess what chapter they're in? The chapter for military occupation. So these all tie in. Everything ties in, just like that. Now let's go back to the executive order for election interference. President Trump signed that executive order September the 12th, 2018, that declared a national emergency. Now, each national emergency unlocks 120 statutory powers. Each. President Trump had 11. In 2018, Title 32 was invoked. The National Guard were at elections 2018, elections 2020, elections 2022, and elections 2024. Did you just hear what I just said? The National Guard were at the election polls in 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024 under the same Title 32 order from way back in 2018. One, Title 18 is Federal Crimes and Criminal Procedures, federal law. No soldier or troop can be at the polls unless they're on federal authority. You hear what I'm saying? Federal authority. President. Presidential. Call up. Title 18, Section 592 outlines this. That troops can be punished. If a soldier went down in uniform and tried to influence you to vote for someone, punishable. Violation of federal law. Troops at the polls must be there by presidential authority, presidential order. Now, if President Trump's a dictator and a threat and violating the Constitution and all these things, then why did, quote-unquote, Joe Biden keep the National Guard at the election polls in 2022 and 2024? Did you hear what I just said? Woo! That's how fired up you should be. That's how passionate you should be. It's like when a preacher tells you what glory is going to look like. Woo! Did you hear what I said? Why would quote-unquote Joe leave the National Guard at the polls in 2022 and 2024 under the same Title 32 order from 2018? Woo! I feel like a Pentecostal preacher right now. And if I could run like the days before the army, I would get up and do me a dance right now. Why? Why? If everything that President Trump has done is unconstitutional, then they should have abolished or they should have terminated those. Oh, no, they didn't do that. None. No Title 10 order or Title 32 by President Donald John Trump that all the military is working under present day that was put into place way back in the first term of the 3 terms were not abolished, not terminated. Executive Order 13848 with the national emergency specifically says in it, although no foreign power has altered the outcome, or there's that little conjunction, men, males, guys, dudes, ham candles, whatever you want to identify yourself as, all right, whatever you want to call yourself, if you'll listen to words, you might score more with your ladies, your wives, your girlfriends. That little conjunction in there, very, very key and very important. Although no foreign power has altered the outcome, that meaning the whole thing, the whole election, or vote tabulation. So keep in mind the National Guard were federalized for election polls, and they've been at the polls on .gov and .mil sites, they can show you, at the polls, 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024. Not only that, but J6 would have fallen in between those, right? Yeah. If you know simple Alabama hillbilly bumpkin math. Pretty simple math there. Pretty sure 2021 was in the middle of those. January the 6th, 2021. You know what January the 6th is? That's the vote tabulation day. That's the electoral college count. That wasn't Joe versus Trump, like some Americans thought. That's how dumb Americans have gotten, that they thought that that day was just a day because, oh, there was a discrepancy in November 2020. So they got to do something with something to do with Trump and Joe. That's what the average American a lot thought. They have no idea that January the 6th is a date set aside to count the electoral college counts, the state count. That's why America looks atrocious. That's why Americans look the way they look. Don't know that one simple detail. That day is vote tabulation day. Although no foreign power has altered the outcome or vote tabulation, signed September the 12th, 2018, declared a national emergency, and then you have your elections, polls, the National Guard at 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024. Which means they're consistent and cohesive. That's called the Trump Dougie. He ought to call it the Trump Dougie. He can teach you how to Dougie. Vote tabulation. Then what the whole world witnessed, the first time in United States history, you witnessed 2 objections take place in the state of Arizona count. 2 objections took place. Guess what's in Title 3, Section 15 of United States Code, which is under codification of our laws and orders? It says what to do when there's 2 objections that take place in the vote tabulation. And then it tells you that no vote is to be counted until the objections are disposed of. Well, guess what happened for the first time in United States history? Not only did you see 2 objections take place in the state of Arizona, which is the 3rd state out the gate, but you also didn't see Congress dispose of the votes. You saw them go from California to Wyoming and, quote-unquote, certify Joe. That was a violation of Title 18 federal law, Sections 2381, 2384, 2385. Go look them up. It was also a violation of Title 3, Section 15, and a violation of Title, so 52 U.S. Code 20511. Just go look them up. All you got to do is go to Google and type in 52 USC, not University of Southern Cal, right, but USC. Hold on, got to do something here. Go to 52 U.S. Code, USC 20511, enter, click on preferably the U.S. House, but there's one out there, I think it's Cornell Law, that has pretty good explanations, all right, and then type in 2381, 2384, 2385 of Title 18, go read those, seditious acts to overthrow the government, one of those, read them. That's all you got to do is read and study those. That's what took place on January the 6th. That was what Americans and the whole world witnessed. That also shows you how dumb, idiotic, ridiculous libtards look. Epstein. Let's get on Epstein, and I'm going to close with this because I've got to roll here shortly. Epstein. I've been getting inboxes of Epstein and also comment boxes. Y'all have lost your everlasting minds about Epstein. One, it's because Americans, you love you some drama. Oh my God, have mercy. Do y'all love you some dang drama? Drama, 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 drama. Y'all think a lot. Now, I don't know who you are, but you can apply it to yourself. Now look, this is how drama Americans have gotten. And brainwashed, controlled, out of reality, whatever you want to call it. Okay, if a man, a male, if a ham candle, all right, were to have 25 women in his household at one time, without a camera around the house, all right, camera crews, and a little logo that says ABC or CBS or NBC or whoever, TNT, USA, whatever you're watching out there, if it ain't got no logo with a camera and camera crews and some biography that says, oh, this guy here is a gentleman, he was raised this, this, and this, and da, 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 and he is in the search for his wife, and blah, 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 blah. If a man had 25 women at his household without cameras, without a fancy bio and some logo on them cameras, guess what y'all females call him? A whore. Y'all call him a male hoe. That's what you call him. But oh, get us some cameras around, lights on, put a little dab of little stuff on him to make him look a little dapper, fix him up just right, make sure his hat's on just right, and oh, there's that logo. Woo! There's that turkey, that beautiful turkey logo right there, the colored feathers. Official right there. Cameras on. Here's your 24 roses for 25 girls. You got to get rid of one girl weekly. But you get to make out with all of them, though, especially when the camera's not on, right? You get to go over there in the jacuzzi and stank up that jacuzzi a little bit, right? You know, don't worry. We'll clean the water out for the next girl. Don't worry. Oh, he's a gentleman! That is where Americans have gotten. That is bigotry and hypocrisy. That you make a dude a gentleman simply because there's cameras there, an official logo, and it's on reality TV. That is America. And then all of a sudden, this dude, right, because, oh, President Trump was in a photo with him 30-something years ago, right, 20-something, almost 30 years ago, because Americans are what? You do what? Drama, propaganda, and hindsight's 20/20. Well, a lot of Americans' hindsights are 5/5. Oh, boy. Just king, boy. Oh, nope. You're in a photo. You cherry pick. You're a cherry picking. I'm going to refrain from some words today. You're cherry picking. Boy, but if we went back in your past, and we found something on you, oh no, you're not popular, you're not famous, you're not known, but if we went back on you and we went back on your past and cherry picked something on you and then let me put it on my pages and go, well, here you go, million. What do you think about these people? Ooh, woo! Hell hath no fury with it. Oh no. If some of you and your skeletons started showing up and popping up and you were popular, and we put it out there and said, look what Susie did back in 1947. Woo! Hell hath no fury. Oh, don't you talk about me like that. That's not true. I didn't do that. Oh, but see, what you do is because, oh, well, President Trump's popular and he's famous and he's well known. Oh, so that's why you cherry pick something and try to make some guilt around it? Why did we get to a place in America where we look for the bad in somebody, first off? If you don't know someone, you never grew up with them, you don't know anything about them, not a thing about them, famous or not, why have we gotten to a place in the United States of America where we look for the bad and negative daily in people? And if there's nothing bad or negative, how did we get to a place where you create something? You fabricate something. That's not the America I want to live in. Now, we have examples in history. Yep, we have examples where people absolutely did it. They were caught, they were prosecuted, and rightfully punished. There are those incidences and cases, and we have to have that. But when you have nothing on somebody, and you fabricate something, and you make up something completely out of the blue, just because you don't like someone's personal belief, maybe on how they believe about God, or how they believe about sexuality, homosexuality, or whatever it may be, and you have nothing on them whatsoever, didn't grow up with them, don't know anything, don't have any court cases, law, evidence, nothing, and you listen to people fabricate a bald-faced lie, frame up, which is a felony, when you seek to frame somebody on something that's not even there, false information, prefabricated false information. How did we get to America? How did we get to this place? How did we get there? I mean, I'm not even on President Trump's level. Nowhere remotely close. And here I am. I had to battle someone 2 years ago who was trying to steal my federal trademark. And called it a lawful action. There's nothing lawful about it. That's a Class C felony. So how did we get to America? How did we get to this place in America where we look for the bad and negative, and if there's nothing, then we go try to prefabricate it? Why are Americans so like piranhas on negativity, drama, propaganda, bad? Why? How? Who are you? Now, there's 2 or 3 big things that can absolutely bust the whole Epstein thing. One, President Trump was a popular figure in the 1990s. Everybody wanted a photo with him. All right? But it's kind of like Instagram. Instagram is a perfect example. Instagram is nothing but photos of one little snapshot of your life. And if you only take good photos, smiling photos, someone goes to your Instagram and they see all these little boxes of smiles. What does it do? It gives a perception that their reality is always smiling, happy, nothing wrong. No bad days, nothing upsets them, nothing makes them mad, bitter, angry, frustrated, anything. Perception. So see, what liberals have done is go way back in the 90s, all right, of one guy who absolutely did do what he did. He did. Epstein did those things. He was caught. He wasn't properly prosecuted when he was caught because it was during a time period when the swamp was still in control, right, of the judiciary system, which became the predominant. Our founders made the legislative branch, the executive branch, and judicial separate for a reason, but they also put them in that sequence for a reason. We, the people, vote in the legislative branch. We vote in the executive branch. We don't vote in the judicial branch. The judicial branch is appointed by the president of the executive branch and confirmed by the Senate of the legislative branch. So when the judicial branch is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they take the law into their hands, very, very dangerous where we got in this United States of America. Very dangerous. The lawyers and the judges took control. Not all lawyers are bad, but a lot of them are. They think they're better than you. They think they're bigger than you. And they use the law against you. That's not what the judicial branch was supposed to do at all. Whatsoever. So when you look at that, you got to look at that sequence and this, the judicial branch didn't do what they were supposed to do with this person. because they weren't going to do that in the first place, because they were all in their own checks and balance system, the swamp that they established. That's why they call it a democracy, because it is a democracy, their democracy, not the republic, not what us veterans stand for, not what President Donald John Trump is the face of, not what this operation is about. So there's a few things that absolutely busted. Everybody wanted a photo of President Trump in the 90s. Liberals went and cherry-picked some dude that ended up being a bad dude, and they cast this in here. Right? But look at the timing of it. Look at the timing of it. Now, hear me out. You got to listen. This absolutely bust everything, plus law busted. Military law, especially. If it's hard to say if you're a bad person, because a lot of you are good people. But think of the deep state. Think of their animosity for the man who has exposed all of their swamp. Everything that President Trump has done that they said was impossible has become possible, which exposes all of their impossibles. Taxes being eliminated, IRS being busted, all these entities, the central banks being caught, drained, everything going back to gold standard, everything back to a order, law and order, right? Everything that swamp has been drained for, President Trump has proven it was possible. They said it was impossible. Remember Obama, what does he have, a magic wand? He's going to make all these jobs come back? Well, I guess he does have a magic wand, all right. Because they definitely have come back. All right. So you gotta apply that one little scenario and watch this. If you were the deep state and you hated somebody, I'm talking about a pure hate, pure hatred, and you knew that this person was about to expose every bit of your circle, every bit of your ring, every bit of your operations. You got to go back to Hillary. Remember what Hillary said? He's going to hang us all. Remember that? Yep. Right? So, someone like that and all of those people that knew that this one person with the military was going to catch them all, expose them all, punish them all. What would you do? I'm going to give you an option. You get two options. If I came to you and I was that person, and I said, all right, you get two options, and we're going to make one of them happen. All right? Your first option is this. You can go with Epstein, who was a real guy, who committed all these crimes, heinous crimes, sick crimes with all these young females, all right, trafficking, and all these orgies and parties and this and that. We're going to go with a real life situation that took place. All right, so here's what's going to happen. President Trump's going to win the election November the 8th, 2016. And immediately after, you get to choose one of these options. You get to say, hey, straight out the gate, in November and December, as he's president-elect, you start this rumor and you start all this turmoil within the Republican side and the Democrat side and all the independents and the world who follows. You get to go with Epstein, who was a real person, created all and did all these heinous crimes and sick crimes. You can go with that. And here's photos of President Trump with him. And then all these people are going to think what they think. And they're going to demand more. And, oh, what are you hiding? And blah, blah, blah. That's option one. Here's option two. You can prefabricate a complete, made-up, false, fake, faux lie, bald-faced lie that didn't even exist on paper. None of this existed. We got the professionals over here. They can type up this fake dossier that looks real, and then we're going to have all these professionals type up these documents with the FBI and the CIA and all that. We're going to type all these fake documents up. All of it's going to be fake. All of it's going to be fraudulent, but they're never going to know that because we're in control. We have our entities all over the world that's going to help us with this, And here's what we're going to do. So you get the option to do a fake, false dossier and call it Russia collusion, and then all the media is going to chant Russia, 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 Russia collusion. And the mainstream media who are with the deep state, they're going to be doing it too. You're going to have all those options to say Russia collusion and President Trump had Russia help him steal the election. Which one are you going with? If you, whoever you are out there on any of my platforms, if you utter the word Epstein again after this, and you can't apply that simple two-option scenario, that the deep state, the swamp that's being drained in a strategic special operation, if you can't apply that simple logic, this ain't for you, boo-boo. Quit. This ain't for you. We already have it under control, but the logic and the reason and the principles, it ain't for you, boo-boo. This ain't for you. Go pick up golf, knitting, crocheting, pickleball. There's a lot of things you can do with your life. You're going to be okay. Everything's under control. We got this. If you can't apply that Epstein was first prosecuted in 2005. 2005! If the deep state had some dirt on President Trump, they had plenty opportunity when they saw him roll down the escalator then to start something with real fire, not fake fire. 2016, they go with Russia collusion. If they had something with him and Epstein, which is a real person, a real criminal, July 2025, just not long ago, President Trump ordered that the grand jury investigation be unsealed for you to consume. Who blocked him? An Obama-appointed judge. I love you, and I'm your friend, and I'm here to help you because I'm keeping my oath. I was put here. I accepted it, and I love it. And I love doing this daily, weekly, monthly, helping you. But if you can't apply that simple logic and reasoning, then you're still captured and controlled by drama and propaganda of the other side, actually, because that's all their crap. That's nothing to do with President Donald John Trump. It's nothing to do with the military, the generals, the admirals, the good guys, all of us good guys, and all the good gals in control. Nothing to do with that. So if you're a Republican, conservative, patriot, MAGA, all the above, and you're demanding, and you're just like a little freaking goldfish waiting on a pebble for something with Epstein, no, you're not. You're not one of those. Sorry. You're just not. You can be, but you can't be saying Trump was right about everything and then turn around and say something like that. You can't say follow the money and then turn around and say something like that. You can't say we have it all, we've caught them all, and turn around and say something like that. Those are oxymorons. That's bigotry and hypocrisy. And it also shows you don't even know the laws and orders invoked, which are military laws, mainly. Military strategies, military tactics, with executive orders and national emergencies. They're all lawful. They're all constitutional. And if they weren't, then what were they doing in the law book still? But they are. And it's because the liberals, the libtards, all right, the libtards of the world, you're letting them have more of a voice than they actually have. There are not that many of them. But you let them have more of a foothold and a voice when you spew this bullcrap. Because if you truly hated your enemy, or what you call an enemy, which we're not enemies, President Trump is for the Republic, stands on the Republic, not controlled by anybody. The whole thing is a strategic operation that's taken down all the leaders in the world who are corrupt. but it's making them take themselves out. A lot of the strategic plan is making them expose themselves, trapping them to where they only have a few options left, and then they got to go with each option as it funnels down. If you know what a funnel looks like, that's what we've done. We've funneled these people. But sometimes it's better to let people take themselves out than it is for you to do it. Sometimes that humility and the embarrassment is worse on them than you taking them out. And see, a lot of Americans, you just want them all taken out. You don't want to learn from it. You don't want to see the benefits of an operation. I've heard it in inboxes talking about, oh, we're tired of the games, the game theory. Well, you'd much rather have game theory than you'd much rather have real theory. And if President Donald John Trump and the military did not stand in and take over this nation way back in 2015, you wouldn't be in my inbox. It's that simple. It really is that simple. If you hated someone so bad and you called them an enemy and you had real dirt on them, you go with the real dirt that you can prove, not something that was false, fake, fraudulent, that if it ever was exposed, which it already has been, that negates everything. And that's how principles work. And a lot of Americans, you don't live by principles. You don't live by standards. You don't live by ethics. You don't live by morals. You have fake morals. You have wishy-washy principles. You have everything is on a shaky foundation because it's not a foundation. This is a solid foundation because this is the Republic. This is the Declaration of Independence. This is the United States military. This is what we're headed to, July 4th, 2026, the 250. That's it. None of that would have been made possible without the laws and orders that our founders established. The principles, the origin, the history of our founders. The Declaration of Independence says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations. So many people just don't even, you don't even read the Declaration of Independence. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, and it says becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to throw off such government. Do you know what throw off and off-throw means? It means to get rid of it. And establish what? New guards for our what? Safety, security, our future. That's why the Declaration of Independence is a prescription and a description. And it says in there multiple times. It says in there again, it is their right and it is their duty. You see how it put there, that terminology? It didn't say it is their right and duty. It said it is their right and it is their duty. It is our right, it is our duty to throw off such government that goes against the foundation. Therefore, you need to know what? The origin, the history, the foundation. You got to think like our founders. You got to get into the mindsets of our founders. We're not a democracy. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, we're a republic. Nowhere in our foundational documents does it say anything about a democracy. The only place you'll find democracy by James Madison, who's the father of the Constitution, and he drafted the Bill of Rights, is in Federalist Papers number 10 and number 14, where he tells you that democracies are dangerous. So when you hear a liberal, a libtard, a Democrat use the term democracy, that automatically shows you their allegiance is to the swamp and swamp-minded. Now, we're in a continuity of government, and we're in a military operation right now, so anything you see on TV right now is captured by that military. Everything. Mainstream media are under a wartime order. Title 47, Section 606, which is telecommunications. All right? You got to go read it. All right? You got to understand that and apply that to everything. A great example, appeals court upheld a ban on the Associated Press that they can't go to the White House or Mar-a-Lago. So anything you see on Associated Press right now means they're writing independently. They cannot go to the White House or Mar-a-Lago. The only way that is made possible is a wartime order. That is a validation of everything. There's multiple other examples to use, but there's one right there to show you that mainstream media and everything you're watching right now are under a wartime order, a wartime code. Title 47, Section 606, Telecommunications Act of 1996. President can control radio, TV, internet broadcasts. Everything you're watching is part of that. Also, your Executive Order 13961, 14146, and 14239 are your continuity of government. One of those was December the 7th, 2020. The other one was January the 19th, 2025. The most recent one was March the 18th, 2025, which means we're still in it. Why would quote-unquote Joe be partially revocating a continuity of government? On the very last 24-hour day of a presidency, quote-unquote Joe partially revocated. You can't revocate something unless it was invoked. Continuity of government. And then you apply your law war manual terms that President Trump uses. Puppet government in occupied territory. They're in the same chapter. Military occupation. President Eisenhower was also not only president, but he was also a 5-star general. He's the one who established the continuity government. And guess what accompanies that? Presidential Emergency Action Documents, PEDs. They're draft classified, which means you can't see them, you can't Google them, but they're with the Department of Justice and the President. What did Benny Jonhson say at the quote-unquote funeral for Charlie Kirk, which was not real? No casket, no burial, no resting place, all part of the operation. What did he say? That a godly government took over this land? The Department of War and the Department of Justice? Presidential Emergency Action Documents. President Trump in the first 180 days told you I've signed over 350 executive actions. Not on the Federal Register. At that 100-day mark, there were only 150 executive actions total. Memoranda, executive orders, and proclamations. There were only 150. Where were the other 200? Make sure you're following me on the correct pages. Linktree, LINKTR period EE /1776 Nation. All right. These bad boys right here. This is part 1. This is part 2. You can get them on Amazon if you're international. If you want them quick for a birthday or something, I suggest Amazon. But if you want them signed by me, and you don't mind a little wait sometimes when we're getting inventory, but if you want to sign by me, you got to go to Rattletrap, RATTLETRAP 1776.com. All right, or just go to my link tree and you'll find it there. But Rattletrap1776.com. Make sure you don't type in more than one T. It's 2 T's. RATTLETRAP 1776.com, and then you can find those there. And I sign everything. Well, I sign my books. All right. Also, I have this #1 bestseller. Country music is just as linked in to the deep state. It was. All right. And they're also part of the clean out. All right. The major labels, they're all monopolies. They control everything. They control country music fans. They control everything. The Royal Flush of Country Music, it's a #1 bestseller. And I'm currently working on book number 4, simultaneously making notes to book 3, which will be the, it actually be book number 4 because it'll be part 3 of The Midnight Rider Rides Again. But I'm working on a current book right now that's going to be documentation for future generations of the hypocrisy of libtards. All right, and it's going to be humorous, but it's going to be factual and humorous at the same time. And but I'm on chapter 42 of it, and about to be done with it. So I'll have it up on Amazon soon, and also on my website. And I'll unveil the title of it whenever I'm ready to launch it. So it's technically book number 5, but book 3, the part 3 of the Midnight Rider, won't be until obviously we're done with number 47, which is the strategic and special operation. I hope this blesses everybody. I hope it helps everybody to start thinking with your brain, start thinking logically, remove and divorce your emotions and your feelings. All right, those get you in trouble with anything. Same thing like Instagram, I was saying. Everything, just because people are smiling, all that, don't mean anything. All right, now you should be smiling because of President Donald John Trump, the 45-47, and the military. And military laws, orders, regulations, customs, strategies, and tactics, my friends, are not conspiracy theories. So anybody who tries to attach this with that, all they're doing is promoting laziness, and they're also trying to depower you, not empower you. All I do is empower you with the tools that President Donald John Trump and the military are working with. They're working with laws and orders. It's that simple. But you got to know the right laws and orders. You got to have the key laws and orders. And I show you those exact laws and orders. All right, not all laws and orders apply. All right, so there's certain unique laws and orders that outline the 45-47 that can help you divorce your feelings and your emotions and escape the drama, the propaganda, and all this other stuff over here to where you can actually free your life up, go fishing more, go hiking more, go hunting more, whatever you do. You can go do that more because you'll have the peace and the comfort to know what is taking place. And even if you can't contribute somehow, we got it taken care of, baby. You're going to benefit from it. And there's a way that everybody can benefit from it. There's also a way everybody can contribute. But you can't contribute when you don't have a clue of what's going on and you're selling and spewing off all this stuff that is false, fake, not real. And it's unnecessary. So I'll have this up on Rumble here shortly. Make sure, again, you're following all the correct pages and also the correct Rumble. And I also have started posting to YouTube. My YouTube is the whatever it is, youtube.com, whatever it's, but it's Derek Jonhson Country. All right, and that's where you'll be able to find it. If you like YouTube, I know everybody has app preferences, so I have started posting to YouTube to clarify that. So yes, but you'll find everything on Linktree, LINKTR /EE / 1776 Nation.